The following video has got all the information you need to know going into Game Week 4. Now I'm going to start this video as I do with all the ones like this by going through the top players by position for expected points according to DraftHound. You can find DraftHound yourself in a link in the description below. So top in the list for the goalkeepers, we've got Edison, Vicario in second for Spurs, who I actually think don't look too bad defensively. I think he could genuinely be an option as the season goes on. Areola, 4 million keeper, third place, with Luton away as their fixture. Flecken, Johnston, Rob Sanchez, Allison, Jose Sarr, Pickford and Ramsdale. Let me know in the comments if you've got one of these goalkeepers. A very interesting player tops the list for defenders this week. We got Joachim Andersen of Crystal Palace with 5.7 expected points against Wolves. I think it's just due to the fact his underlying numbers in terms of goal threat this season have been really, really good. And that's put him top of the list for expected points for defenders. Closely followed, only 0.1 in it by Chilwell. Udogie from Tottenham, I think he's quickly emerging as, well, he's not 4.5 anymore, but basically the best 4.5 million defender at the start of the game. Gusto, unfortunately he's risen by 0.1, but I still think it's an absolute bargain at 4.1 million, at least for the next few game weeks. Trent is always up there, as is Estupinian. Pinnock, Henry, Colwill and Saliba are the remaining top defenders. Next up, we've got the midfielders, and Salah tops the list with 6.5 expected points. With Aston Villa at home, he's back to do pretty well, alongside Sterling and Mbeumo, both on 6.4. Bowen, Saka, Son, Foden, Odegaard, Maddison and Diaz round off that list. I think, to be honest, there are no big surprises there. I think Bowen is one of my favourites on this list. I'm not going to mention him as a player to buy because he goes on quite a tough fixture run. But to be honest, there's a chance that West Ham do well in the tougher fixtures just with the way they play, sitting back, soaking up the pressure and hitting teams on the counter-attack. I think with Kudus in the team as well, they'll only improve. So despite a tough run of fixtures coming up, I think Bowen could be a good option, even in the tough games. Saka, I mean, he's gone up to 8.7 million now, but I still think he's underpriced, even at that price. Foden, he was ill for Game Week 3's fixture, but I think he'll be back fit for Game Week 4 and Fulham at home, which is obviously a really good fixture for them. Yeah, Maddison as well. I'll talk about him later in the video. Next up then, we've got the forwards, and it's no surprise to see Erling Haaland at the top of the list. 8.9 expected points, over 3 more than the next forward, which is Wissa. He's got Bournemouth at home, good fixture for him. Nicholas Jackson in third place, Forest at home, a good fixture of course for Chelsea. Alvarez, I like him as an option against Fulham at home, but you always ask the question with Alvarez, is he going to play? Isak against Brighton, Watkins, Solanke, Darwin Núñez, Edouard and Morris of Luton finish off that list. Alright, we've seen all the positions now and on to the all-important captaincy decision. Now, in terms of expected points, I think that decision is an easy one this week. Haaland pretty much 2 more expected points than any other player in the game according to DraftHound, and to be honest, I pretty much agree with that. 91.3% ownership. He's got Fulham at home. In my opinion, the worst defensive team in the league so far this season. I think it's a straight cut and true Haaland captaincy in my opinion. Although, with that data, let me know in the comments if you're going to go different. Okay, just a look at the clean sheet odds then. Now, I like to consider teams above 30% to be ones that I'd kind of back to keep a clean sheet. Basically, anything above 30%, I'd feel relatively comfortable starting a defender from their team. So, Man City, Chelsea, both 50% or above. That means either equally likely or more likely than not to keep a clean sheet, as is Man City's case. Crystal Palace up there at 44. Brentford, West Ham, Everton, Tottenham, Arsenal and Liverpool. All of these teams are above 30% for a clean sheet, so I've got my eye on those. Anything below, I think you'd probably look to bench those players this week, if at all possible. Now, my personal favourite transfer target for Game Week 4 is Raheem Sterling. He said himself this week in an interview that he wants to be the Chelsea top goal scorer, and I think another string to his bow could potentially be penalties. I think with Enzo Fernandez being the designated penalty taker for the last one, he actually missed it, so I still think it's a bit open in the air as to who will take the next Chelsea penalty. I believe Raheem Sterling took a few at his time at Man City. Obviously, Nicholas Jackson, the centre forward, probably lined up to take them as well, so we'll see what happens, but I think he's got a good chance of taking them for Chelsea. Also, just in general, I think it's quite forgotten about just how good he was at Man City. You've got the stats there from his best season. 17, 18 for Man City, and just in general in the Premier League for them, he got 134 returns in 225 games, which is absolutely fantastic. I know Chelsea are not as good as Man City, certainly not as good as they were in the seasons that he did well, but I do feel like he could come back to those kind of numbers, particularly if he takes on kind of a talismanic role in that Chelsea team, which I think he could end up doing. He seems to be playing with a lot of confidence. His performances against West Ham and Luton have been really good, and with those fixtures coming up, I think he's probably, if not the best player in FPL at the moment. My next transfer target is James Maddison. He looks absolutely fantastic, and I would say probably the most important player in that Spurs team at the moment, just for the creativity that he offers. And of course, he got on the end of a chance against Bournemouth and scored, so I think he looks a great option. I would say comparing him to someone of a similar price, i.e. Phil Foden, he doesn't have a great fitness record, does Maddison, but you know whenever he is fit, he's going to be starting for Spurs. You don't have to worry about minutes with him, well, at least when he's not injured anyway. And last season as well, it's not just, obviously, we know how good of a player he is, right? He got 19 returns in 30 games for a team that got relegated. And Spurs' fixture coming up looked really good, and he's proven already that really regardless of the opposition, he can perform well. So yeah, really like James Maddison, and if you're looking for maybe a Martinelli replacement, someone of that price category, he's obviously a great option. Now, I think Reece James is probably going to come back in a few weeks' time, but that doesn't really put me off Malo Gusto. Now, I brought him into my team for Game Week 3, and I still think he's a great option going forward. 4.1 million, he's the cheapest Chelsea defender in the game, and whilst Reece James might be back in a couple of weeks' time, or potentially the game after the international break, he's got such a terrible injury record, unfortunately, that I don't think he's really going to manage more than a few weeks back when he does return. And Malo Gusto is always going to be an option, in my opinion. Like, there might be a couple of weeks, obviously, when Reece James is back, but the horrific injury record that he has, Malo Gusto, I think, is probably going to play half the league games this season. I mean, just my opinion, but he's looked really good as replacing Reece James. Obviously, not been a like-for-like replacement. Doesn't quite get the attacking numbers that Reece James was. You can see there how he did for Lyon and how he's done for Chelsea this season so far. Kind of already overperformed those expected returns per 90 this season, but 4.1 million for a Chelsea defender with those fixtures, I don't think you can say no. Alright, and that's the end of the video. Hopefully a good amount of information there to get you ready for the game week. Let me know in the comments who you're going to captain, who you're looking to bring in, and what you think of those expected points totals. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, found it useful, please leave a like rating and subscribe to the Golden Goal channel just there, and I'll catch you in the next one.